and then Philadelphia. Uh, the with regards to questions, when we get finished with Boston, when we're ready to board the New Haven train, we can do questions about Boston. And we have done the New Haven and PRR, then we can do any questions about that, and then we can save the Philadelphia questions for the end. And I don't know why that's doing this. My screen is doing funny things. This has not been a very good day. So, in 1967, David graduated from high school. He's the guy in the upper right there, David Allen Wilson. David did not distinguish himself as a student, mostly because his main textbooks were the Interurban Era and Trolley Car Treasury and whatnot. It wasn't until I actually got into the transportation business that I could really focus my attention and be a good student. Anyway, I did successfully graduate. And as a graduation present, my mother, who already had a fascination with Massachusetts, said, "Let's go to Boston." Oh, okay, we can do that. So we boarded our 727 Astrojet from Windy O'Hare Airport, and off we went, and we got to Boston. I took the first few days. She was around for a few days, and then she went off to wherever she went, and then I just did rail fanning on my own. Part of what I'm doing with this presentation, this is not about the nuts and bolts of the transit system and how many miles of each route and whether the cars had GE motors or Westinghouse motors or anything like that. I think everybody who's watching this probably had a similar experience growing up, where you learn to think about transit systems as amusement parks. And so there was the Boston Amusement Park and the New Haven, Pennsylvania Amusement Park and the Philadelphia Amusement Park. The other thing I'll mention is that Boston was new to me. That's my first visit there. Philadelphia, I had already done the previous year as a 16-year-old. Did I just kill the share? Share with me.
No, you're
I am. I can't see my own presentation now.
Oh my goodness.
So bear with me. I don't know who the bear is, but bear with me. I've lost it.
Okay. Why don't
I'm going to stop sharing and then
Yeah.
reshare.
Right. Okay.
All right. Now let's try this again once more with feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what do you see?
It'll give it a minute.
Okay.
Now, okay, we're back to the PCC picture. Yep.
Okay, good. So we've all had this experience of going transit systems as amusement parks, and this is basically what I did then. As soon as I got into town, dumped my stuff in the hotel and got out on the system. What was the system back then? Oh, I should also mention as a 17-year-old, that the month of June, I could have gone to the Monterey Pop Festival in the Summer of Love in San Francisco, but instead I did PCC cars and Brilliners, etc. So, what was Boston all about? There was the Green Line, which is the light rail, the Red Line. I don't think they were actually named those colors, although this map did show them that. But I'll sequentially go through these in the presentation. I also wanted to use the ERA headlights. That was fortunately ERA headlights had just done a program about Boston, or a presentation about Boston, and they included this really wonderful map. So I had a real sense of where I needed to go. I've also included this map, partly because there's detail involved that in those days, the Green Line still went up to Watertown, and you could actually make a circle trip, um, a circle trip on the trolley bus to Watertown, and then come back in on on what we then called the trolley, that's now called the light rail. I'll refer to these maps again as we go forward. So first thing to do was I went out to Riverside, partly because I lived in the town of Riverside in Illinois, but partly because it was exotic to me because it was in the former commuter rail line that had been converted to transit. So I got to ride the picture window cars. I'll just show some various scenes around here, pre-war cars and such. I imagine that these women were probably going to Logan Airport. One of the great things about many of the places I visited is the work equipment was all prominently displayed. They didn't really need a lot of snow plows in June, but they were out there if they needed them. So went out to Riverside, came back into Cleveland Circle to the or Chestnut Hill, and 58 years have gone by, and I'm a little bit fuzzy on some of the names, but this is where the Riverside line met the Beacon Street line. I have some recollection that this box motor may have gone off to Seashore Trolley Museum and come back and gone out and come back. That's just a recollection I have. I don't know for absolute certain. So maybe somebody can enlighten me about that. So I then went down to the Beacon Street route. It must have been, since this is already late June, this girl in the green dress must have been in summer school. But I should also mention, as you can see, this was the new MBTA paint job. As I recall, MBTA had taken over from the MTA maybe in 1964. So they were 3 years into it and still kind of establishing their own brand. So off we go down Beacon Street. I loved the red globes on the poles where you had the fire call stations. So rode all the way through the subway and then out to Leechmere. That I guess this has been bypassed now with the recent extension. So, having finished Riverside, then I went off out to the Boston line, the one that had part of it was built on the former interurban, the Boston Revere Beach and Lynn. One of the things I always find fun is to find obsolete signage. This was out someplace out on the East Boston line that was still talking about trackless trolleys must be to Wilmington, but they've long gone from that location. So they had the old cars, which was a fun thing for me because we still had our old 4000 series cars in Chicago, and these well, sounded and smelled like our 4000s in terms of the aroma from the motors and the brake shoes. But then they had the newer, I think these were St. Louis cars that held down regular base service. It's gotten so windy here, the gusts of wind have set off car alarms downstairs. So, speaking of amusement parks, this was if I remember right, this was the Wonderland amusement park that was out at the end there. So, they, they weren't real strong on 1967 era passenger comforts, but it got people to and from where they needed to go reliably. So next morning, we stayed at the Brattle Inn, which must have been, hopefully you guys can see the cursor here, conveniently right around the corner from the Harvard Square shop and trolley bus yard. So it was, I don't think that my mother had that in mind when she booked that place, but that was wonderfully convenient to get the day started. Well, these cars were out of service, and we're still just there awaiting this disposition. A friend of mine in Chicago was friends with Bradley Clark, who then arranged for me to meet somebody where we actually got a tour of the interior of the shop. And I don't know if we were told not to take pictures there or I was just reluctant to do so, but the pictures that I do have are strictly outside of fun work equipment. Have to change the sign yet at Harvard Square. The trolley buses ran through the kind of a semicircular subway there, which gave rise to the need for the left-hand doors. That I guess they were strategic in the industry. So I should mention that as I've gone my life, I've gone through different phases of liking different stuff, and 1967 and 1968 were my years where I was completely gaga about trolley buses. So I do have a lot of pictures of them both in Boston and Philadelphia included in this. There were, if I remember right, there were four routes that radiated from Harvard Square: Waverly, Watertown, Huron Avenue, and I don't remember the other one. So this is where the trolley buses lived when they weren't out on the street. There are the left-hand doors that were needed for operation of the subway. Sometimes it's fun to think about the context of pictures where well, those trolley buses are gone now, but I'm sure that the trolley buses outlived the Sears and Roebuck store. So then from there, I'm going to go out on the what had been the Huntington Avenue line down to the Arbor Way that was subsequently cut back to, I think, Heath Street or someplace like that. So this was right at the portal where they're coming out of, I think it was Boylston Street. As an aside, once my mother went running off to wherever she went to, then I just moved down to the YMCA that was equally convenient to transit. I could just hop on the system here and go wherever I needed to go. So the fun thing about this was they were running these Northeastern University trippers using the ex-Dallas double end cars. And once again, it looks like Northeastern University summer school was in session. So went down to Harbor Way, and this was a transit dream. I didn't know what to expect when I got to these places. It was this one wow moment after another. The Pullman PCCs and the fish bowls and there's that looks like a Mac out there, and just and then the rapid transit line as well. So there's pictures around the around Arbor Way. here was the south end of what is now the orange line. So I went down on the Huntington Avenue PCC, and then I took the orange line back into town. This was the orange line before it got relocated into the expressway, and it had all kinds of fun things like the Dudley Street Tower, if I remember right, is at I think it's at Seashore Trolley Museum now. But this was just an amazing thing for a 17-year-old to see this rapid transit station as complex as it is. Then heading on up towards downtown Boston. I'll move up one and then come back to that. What you're looking at here is where it used to be that the route went around on the Atlantic Avenue elevated. That was closed in 1938 and relocated then to run through the subway. And when you got around to North Station, that was where we emerged from the subway alongside the Green Line to North Station. And then at North Station, the Green Line, as you can see with the dashed line, went to the left to go out to Leechmere. And then this one went on up to the shops. So across I think that's the Charles River. And then through the Sullivan Square station. That was another thing that was really, really exotic for me coming from Chicago, this idea of having stations that you go through. And but judging from the fact that it says MTA, that must have been the MTA headquarters and perhaps the T headquarters. I don't know. This was the inside of Sullivan Square. And then we went on to Everett shops. This just amazed me that all these different kinds of vehicles are just all parked in here willy-nilly together. It doesn't make any difference whether you're a bus or a rapid transit car or a steeple cab or whatever. You're just all there in the same yard together. So we've now done well, we've been out to Riverside and we've been out to Parkway and come back up Everett. What do we do next? Well, we're back here now at Harvard Square. I guess we're going to do the Red Line. This was the Harvard Square station. And it was a special treat to go down to see the Mattapan-Ashmont high-speed line, once again using the XTALIS double-end PCCs, and once again with prominently displayed work equipment. So back up to the trolley buses. I couldn't quite stay away from them. Once again, who'd have thought that the trolley bus system, obviously not the old Pullmans, would outlast A&P food store chain. No, A&P was among the not only Fortune 500, I would think they were among the Fortune 10 biggest companies, and they're just gone. And that fascinates me, that how somebody of a company of that magnitude could just disappear. So went out to Watertown. I already knew that Watertown was not going to be there for long, though I think that the track and wire remained in place for years and years. My recollection, I read someplace that they discontinued the route not so much for because they were anxious to replace it with buses, but they needed to conserve the car fleet. So, Watertown. And at this point, since we're about to go on to the New York, New Haven and Hartford Railroad, I'm going to stop to see if there are questions that either I can answer, or if I can't answer, that one of the others of you can answer the questions a little bit better. 58 years have gone by, and my memory isn't of all this stuff isn't as sharp as what it was back then. So I'm
So
gonna stop. Yeah.
you're doing quite well, David. And what's happened, I think we do have some New Englanders on the program, and they've been answering questions in the chat as we've been going on. I do want to ask you, are you indoors or outdoors right now?
I'm outdoors, and if that's a sound problem, I think I can adjourn the inside. It's a hurricane
We're
going on
hearing
out
is
here.
not so much wind. It's almost like I hear people talking. Are they outside also?
Well, that's actually the reason that I'm outside, is because I wanted to be away from people. But I'm
Ooh.
looking in through the window, and I can see that there's nobody in the lobby right now.
Okay,
So I'm gonna pop in and get out of the
great.
baleful wind.
Yep. Excellent.
Also, a dust storm coming through here. I
When
should explain to all of you that what has happened here is I'm in the midst of kind of a workaround because my internet failed at home. And I needed to find a place. I needed to find a place that had Wi-Fi and was open on a Friday evening long enough to do this presentation.
Much-
Okay, let's try this.
it's much better.
Oh, good. All
Much,
right, much
perfect.
better.
Yeah.
All right. And fortunately, I've kind of my own little corner of the world here.
Yeah.
And
So
and
see any questions right now, not even in the chat. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
okay, let's just move on. And I've got to restart sharing. Okay, tell me when you see New York, New Haven, and Hartford.
Yes.
Okay, so after my 3 days in Boston. Oh, by the way, what you didn't see is I must have gone out to Boston College, because I in my entire railfan career have been always a mantra is cover all trackage. So I don't know what how that was that I didn't include any Boston College, maybe because I have my infatuation with the trolley buses. Anyway, after 3 days, it was time then to board the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railroad at South Station, starting out coming down alongside this one through Forest Hills and out of town. Well, South Station was just an amazing place. Fortunately, I got there early enough that I could kind of browse around for a while, because we had all manner of fun stuff that looks like an FL9 over to the right. You've got this RDC. I had never seen a RDC with baggage facilities before. This Alco RS2 or 3, I've never been able to tell them apart. The Roger Williams, what was the other one? There was the Roger Williams and the Daniel Webster. I don't know which one this is, but the specially outfitted RDCs with the locomotive cab front. And then this is my train, the Senator, that's going to take me to Philadelphia. So what are we going to do? We're going to come down on the shoreline past Providence, through New London, New Haven, Bridgeport, and then down across the Hellgate Bridge through Penn Station, and then on to the my personal PRR. So away we go. One of the things that was another thing that I'm glad for about how I've done this 60 years of my life is, number one, shoot what you see. I didn't, I just plunked myself down in a seat on the left-hand side of the car on the Senator, and I figured if there's something interesting out the window, I'll just shoot his picture. And there was interesting stuff out the window. Let's start with this FL9 at Providence. And then we got down to New Haven for the engine change, and that took enough time that I could kind of wander around a little bit. It was one of the messages here with regard to the New Haven. When you're in as big a financial crisis as the New Haven, paint is discretionary, and it was starting to really show. Interesting things here. Now, this is New Haven. I'm looking over at these cars on the right. They look like they're seaboard cars, I suppose. Where were we? Seaboard cars. Now, I understand that ACL, well, by this time it was Seaboard Coastline, and Seaboard Coastline and Southern cars came up to Boston, but why they are stashed here in the New Haven yard is something I'm still scratching my head about. But they're there. So we got our P5 coupled up, and we're ready to head south. And here we go. Got some commuter cars, old ones down on the left, and then the newer ones, such as they are. Came down across the Hellgate, past Sunnyside Yard, into the tunnel, into Penn Station, and out the other side. So Fairbanks Morse looks like a baby train master. And it just, when I look back on it now, I'm left breathless about how many cool things happen outside the window while I'm riding with a camera, with film, where I'm actually paying attention. So we've got a Virginian rectifier on the right, and that looks like an Alco S something. And then another must be I don't know if it's FL9. Then we came down along past the Long Island Railroad. I didn't stop in New York. I mean, I just rode the train straight through. Obviously, we made our station stop at Penn Station. But what I didn't do was stop to do New York rail fanning. And I never noticed until just now that warehouse back there, that's Bloomingdale's. So we have now come through Penn Station and out the other side into PRR land with MP54s were still quite the stalwarts of the fleet. Trenton. And then also, when I just think back on it now, the astonishment of my good fortune to just happen to be looking out the window, and here are I can't remember the model number now, but real specimens of the PRR electric locomotive fleet. So got to Philadelphia, and we came into 30th Street, and then I took a shuttle down to Suburban Station in a MP54. Okay, the most reliable pleasure afforded by theater is the intermission. So, pay toilet 5 cents. I yield to the moderator here for summoning. How much time do we have?
We're at 8:16. Why don't we reconvene at 8:25?
All right.
8:25, or for you, 7:25.
Oh, so you mean I don't have an hour to wander around the gym here?
But yeah, the reception seems to be much better there, so.
Oh, good. All right. So, and it turns out that this little corner here, there's nobody hanging out inside.
That's.
All right, I'll
And,
see you in 9
Intermission,
minutes.
if anyone has questions, post them in the chat and we'll take a look.
All right,
Great.
I'll be back.
Okay. All right, 8:25, everybody.
All right.
What, sweetie?
Not yours? That's not yours, is it?
Oh, it is. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
I
you.
can get it for you.
Okay.
think we can start again, David.
All right, I'm here. And I guess everybody is there.
Yep.
If you're in the health club looking at the big screen, it says that today is special baseball day. It was a Cubs and Sox, crosstown series.
Sounds serious. Yeah.
And my Cubs, whooped the White Sox 13-3.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, so we're ready to resume.
Yes.
All right, so, I dumped my stuff off at the Philadelphia YMCA and promptly went down to the subway surface to take the Route 36. Partly because maybe some of the, I need to back up. Were there any questions or comments or anything regarding the New Haven and the PRR?
No, there were just some comments, and the most interesting comment is they're noticing much less through running of the low, the all-stop trains. Like you don't see a SEPTA R7 running to New York or New Jersey Transit Northeast Corridor running to Philly, and that's that is true. If you're doing commuter, you have to change in Trenton now.
Yeah. I didn't realize there were run through locals.
There are enough New Yorkers. There was something called clockers, I think, and they were like all stop locals from New York to Philly, but maybe one of the New Yorkers here will chime in, but I believe that's what they called the clockers.
Oh, the clockers. Yeah, I remember the clockers. So, I dumped my stuff off at the YMCA and immediately went out to ride the 36. And the reason I rode the 36, a well-known person back in the day, I think he's long since passed away, was Ernie Moser, who was a Philadelphia trolley operator. I had befriended him, he befriended me the year before. And he regularly picked the 36. And so I went down there. Every time I would come to Philadelphia, I would just wait for several cars in the hopes that he came along, and sure enough, he did. And it was a good thing, because what would happen is we got to the end of the line, and one of the people, when we were talking before the presentation tonight, was talking about transit operators who don't have enough time at the end of the line. So what would happen is he would drop me off at a little sandwich shop a block or so from the end, and I would get his supper for him, and then he would repay me when I got back on the car. But it was always fun to ride with Ernie, because he gave me a running commentary about what there was, and that made the 36 my favorite route. So the point of being there, of coming to Philadelphia, was for the ERA convention, which was intended to be Saturday, touring the Reading, Sunday touring the PRR electric routes, Monday PTC shop tour, and Tuesday PTC streetcar trip. Something must have gone wrong, because the PRR trip didn't happen. And I've got to give kudos to the ERA program management to hastily cook up a Red Arrow trip to take the place of the PRR. I wasn't a member of ERA yet, and also being a 17-year-old, all that stuff like the cocktail party and all that kind of stuff, it wasn't meaningful to me. So I only came out for the trips themselves and didn't get to, I never went to the meeting headquarters or any of that. I don't even know how I knew that. I suppose they must have said on the Reading, tomorrow we're not going to do the PRR, we're going to do Red Arrow instead. So off we go on the Reading, from Reading Terminal. We'll start out with a little bit of geography. This is a little bit fuzzy, but for those of you who may not be as familiar, we started out from Old Reading Terminal before they rerouted everything up to Jenkintown. First thing we did was go out to West Trenton, and then we came back in, and then we went up to Hatboro and came back. I don't think we went, yeah, maybe we did go all the way to Doylestown and come back. We did not take the Reading up to Norristown. So we did those three and then came back to Reading Terminal, and then we're on our own to do other stuff. So off we went. The Reading was in the midst of this modernization program where they had took some of the old 1930 era cars and did them up as blue liners. And that was what we had a two-car train of blue liners. This is at West Trenton. This is, I think this is at Doylestown. Must be West Trenton because this is on the way back. This is the cars are stored out at the end of the line for waiting for the, in this case, the Tuesday morning rush, because Monday was the 4th of July. Glenside, an important place to me because one of my uncles had lived in Glenside since the 1940s and was my regular place to visit when we had come out on family vacations previously. That was why I was already familiar with Philadelphia, was that my father's family goes back to the mid 1800s in Philadelphia area, and especially I had an uncle in Jenkintown and an uncle in Glenside, so we rode the Reading a lot. This is also at Glenside. Hatboro. I recognize Bob Barth, who must have come out from Chicago. The pictures are a little bit fuzzy. I still had I had an old camera, so it's not as, that didn't work right. Not as crisp as I'd like. Anyway, Hatboro was my last picture from the Reading. What I did then when we got back to Reading Terminal, I must have run down to the Broad Street subway and immediately rode up to Wyoming Avenue to ride one of the trolley bus routes. Well, I still find that those Philadelphia, those transit maps from that era to be some of the best transit maps ever. And transit maps are important to me because one of my jobs at the CTA, for my whole 9 years I was there, I was accountable for all of the factual content of the CTA map. Not the graphics or anything like that. But one of the things that did for me was that now when I look at anybody else's transit map, I'm habitually going along looking at every street name to see that it's spelled right. Anyway, I'm rambling. I love this transit map because it showed all of the streets, but it also distinguished if it's a double blue line, it's a streetcar. If it's a single blue line, it is a trolley bus. And if it's a red line, it's a bus. And for somebody, I first visit as a teenager to Philadelphia, my Uncle Horace from Glenside gave me a copy of this, and it was such a wow moment that last night I must have spent 45 minutes just looking at the map that he gave me from 1966. So what I've done here is I have come up on the Broad Street subway, and the Wyoming Avenue Route 75 runs east and west. I think we're going to go over to Wayne Junction. Yep, there's Wayne Junction where the Route 75 trolley bus crossed the Route 23 Germantown Avenue. So you've got three kinds of transit here. You've got the trolley bus, you've got the streetcar, and then the Reading, there was a prominent, Wayne Junction was a prominent station on the Reading. I'm probably instructing the choir here, and all of you, many of you probably know as much as I do or more about the track configurations, but I don't know that for sure. So I'm just going to do a little summary. This is a track map from 1960, but all of this track was effectively completely intact in 1966 and 67 when I made my multiple trips. So what we just did was we came up on the Broad Street subway that's not depicted to Wyoming Avenue, which is cutting straight across. There's Wayne Junction. There's the general shops that we'll be visiting later on. But so what you had was the three long north and south routes, the 23 Germantown Avenue, the 47 and the 50, and these will actually be prominently shown in the program here. Girard Avenue that tied together the west side routes and the on the north side routes, Allegheny Avenue, Erie, Torresdale, Erie, Wayne, and then the exotic one was Route 6. What was left of it, it's the one that used to go up to Willow Grove Amusement Park, but it was disconnected from the rest of the system with a long section of non-revenue trackage. And as a youngster, that was a fascinating thing, that non-revenue trackage was just kind of exotic. I also like some of the fun track configurations that were left over from previous abandonments, like this Glenwood Avenue reverse loop. You want to turn the car around, you have to go down and then back around the loop and then go out to back where you were going. But I guess it was for the few times that you might need it, it wasn't worth reinstalling special work. Anyway, I'm rambling again. I'll show this map again for orientation purposes. So here off I go on the 75. Over to, and on the east end, it connected with the Frankfurt elevated. Then I rode I always want to call it Bustleton Avenue, and I'm not sure that's right. Anyway, trolley bus that went up in that direction. Once again, I'm just going to ramble a little bit about philosophizing. That sometimes it's the context of the picture that is more important than the vehicle. And in this case, the water ice, the soft pretzels, the suburban Lit Brothers store, that's all the Texaco station. All of that is not there anymore. And I didn't need to do that. So, what I must have done then is must have gone back to, after riding that trolley bus that ran out of one of the Frankfurt stations, was taking the 75 back over. And then I love the 47 because I had a friend that some of you might have remembered, Jim Boyd, who passed away 2 or 3 years ago. Not the photographer, but a fellow that lived on the north side of Philadelphia. He lived at the north end of the 47, so that also became a favorite route of mine for that reason. This was the north end at Godfrey Avenue. There's Studebaker Lark up there. Inside of the PCC. So, first day was the Reading, and then I did my riding around here and there. The next day was the Red Arrow trip, so I took the Market Frankfurt L out to 69th Street. I loved the Milbourne station because it was also exotic, this little surface level station with a little neighborhood right there. I used to fantasize about living there. On to 69th Street. So in the morning, we seem to have chartered a Liberty liner. Liberty liners, of course, were important to me because they had come from the North Shoreline. When they, on the last weekend of the North Shoreline, I lied to my mother I told her I was going to the museum. I was in 8th grade when the North Shoreline stopped running. And it was this moment of decision. My mother told me, I asked for permission to ride to North Shoreline, and she said, no, absolutely not. So I lied to her and did it anyway, and did get to ride the Electroliner, and now they were made available to me again at the Red Arrow. The Almond Joy cars at 69th Street. So we're getting ready to start the trip now. A fun personal interest story. The fellow with the yellow shirt standing right there, Jerry Ballin. I didn't know who that was. It was just another person who was in the picture. But we started chitter-chattering on the next day on the PCC fan trip. And it turned out that he was from Chicago. We wound up being best of friends. I was usher in his wedding, and he was an usher in my wedding. We still saw each other very regularly until a few months ago when he moved to California to be near to his kids and grandkids. But it's I had a couple of times in that era where I have pictures of people that I would know later, but I didn't know them at the time I took their picture. So here we are at 69th Street with a wonderful survey of equipment. It doesn't have the St. Louis car, but it's got the center door car and the 80. Those might be our fan trip cars down there. This one that you see in the foreground, the Brilliners, is just a regular service car coming into 69th Street. So here we are out on the Sharon Hill line, I think in Alden, with our 2 fan trip cars. And that looks like Jerry Landau, judging from his physique. So there are the enthusiastic ERA participants enjoying the fan trip on the way down to Sharon Hill. These changing ends, we've got to be in media. The landmark for me is historically the Acme supermarket. It was right at the end of the line in media. This looks like it ought to be State Road right at the beginning of the street running in media. Someplace back closer to Drexel Hill. I've got these a little out of order because this is definitely media. And then I have to say, this is a program about what happened when I was 17. That makes me think of the Frank Sinatra song, when I was 17, it was a very good year. I know it was a very good year, especially because of this. But 17-year-olds eventually grow up and get married and bring their wives out to places of importance. And so here we are, my wife and I sharing wine with the light rail cars going by. So what to do after the Red Arrow trip? Scamper right back to the trolley buses. This time I went up and rode the Route 66, Frankfurt Avenue. That was exotic to me because it ran through these, towards the outer end at that time. It was pretty rural out there, and they would get up to, they'd wind those Marmon Harringtons out at whatever their top speed was, probably 45, 50 miles an hour. And there it is at the rustic end of the line, Frankfurt of Frankfurt Avenue. Okay, coming back to the city. Once again, I must have come back down, taking the 75 across, got the Germantown Avenue car, rode up to Chestnut Hill. And then this looks like the next day. Okay, so now this is tour the shops day. And we, on tour the shops day, what did we do? We toured the shops. You'd think that I would have had more pictures from the shops, but I don't. So then, after that, I just went to down Center City, Philadelphia, and just took random pictures here and there in Center City. Once again, I groove on context. So the more people carrying shopping bags or just walking along, noting that this is a Sunday. Well, hey, he'd be dressed, this guy over the left would be dressed up because coming from church, and they probably are too, some coming from church someplace. But it's just fun to see how people were dressed and what the retail areas looked like. This one, yeah, the streetcar isn't very well depicted here, but I just like this picture for this woman with the striped dress. She just is, to me, quintessential Philadelphia. So, with my time off, I scampered on down then to the south end where there were two trolley bus lines, the Tasker Morris and the Snyder Avenue. This must be the Snyder Avenue line because it says Snyder. Now, I must not have been the only fan to scamper down and do that. I don't remember this guy's name that you see in the foreground here, but he's from Chicago. I saw him regularly, but you get to be my age, you have a hard time remembering your own name, let alone anybody else's. So I rode the Route 79. And then the next day, actually, this is kind of a mystery. I have these pictures and I can't really put them in perspective as to, it must have been that day. I must have ridden all the way back the whole length of the 50 up to Rising Sun Avenue. This is Rising Sun Loop. The route went on up to North Street. And I remember of it going to North Street, but I never rode it up there. And I don't know now, was it rush hours only? Why was it that I never rode it? Because once again, my mantra was cover all trackage. So unfortunately, my buddy Jim Boyd, who I actually met him right here. He was on the way home from the barber shop when in 1966, when I was up here fanning, and we just started chitter chattering and became friends. But he passed away a couple of years ago, so I can't ask him. Maybe one of you knows what that North Street extension was all about in the 60s. So now this is definitely on our fan trip. That's Hugh Dunn at 8th and Wolf, making it the south end of the 47 because it's a fan trip. They could sign it up any way they wanted. So we had these two Kansas City cars that we used for the entire charter. This is out on the Route 53 Erie Wayne. This is, for me, a little bit of mystery. 58 years have gone by and maybe my pictures are out of order. I don't know what, but we've got these two Kansas City PCCs. And we've gone out on the 53, and now we're down at the multi-way intersection of Erie and Germantown, where the 56 and the 53 and the 23 and the Broad Street subway all come together. So I've got this whole series of pictures. They're great to get three cars again. Showing how relevant transit was at the time. It must be part of the fan trip just because there's guys out there with cameras. But our two Kansas City cars are nowhere to be seen in these pictures. I think that's Alf Manders, the guy with the blue shirt, another name from 50 years ago. Some way or other, we got reunited with our two ex-Kansas City PCCs. We're now westbound on Girard Avenue, headed out to West Philadelphia. Now, I looked on that track map, and it had to have been a really convoluted routing to get these cars from up in North Philadelphia out to westbound on Girard Avenue. You couldn't come down Germantown Avenue and make the connection, but you had to get over to one of the other, the 47 or the 50. And how did you do that? I don't know. But what's happening here? People are tapping on their watches and some people are sleeping. This is the sign that there's 9 more pictures. So for those of you, well, no, there's nobody, because this is a Zoom program, nobody is trying to take NJ Transit home, but then nobody, as to my knowledge, nobody is taking NJ Transit home anyway, because as far as I know, it's not running. So the remaining 10 pictures, we went out and bopped around West Philadelphia. This is at Lancaster Avenue and 40th and Lancaster. The significance of this location, I think they're still doing the one night a week, let's clean the subway and reroute the subway surface cars, if we still call it subway surface, to 40th and Market. So that's the, whatever it was, Tuesday night trackage or whatever it was, it went down 40th. So we went out then on my favorite Route 36. At that time, it was Eastwick, Elmwood Avenue route, but it went down to this bizarro neighborhood. First of all, in this area that apparently was subdivided slated for residential development, but one of those things, likely the Great Depression set in and they never built any houses. But the bizarro place was Eastwick, that apparently there was some kind of eminent domain thing going on, that the city wanted this land for something. So during those years of 66 and 67, there were a couple of houses that were still occupied, but otherwise it was just this very strange setting with occasional abandoned buildings or missing buildings. I was going to include the loop at the end of the line where the cars turned around in the weeds. But anyway, we've come back up now on the 36, and there was a little piece of non-revenue trackage to get from Elmwood Avenue over to Woodland Avenue. And we then, our fan trip then, so far as I know, must have ended at Woodland Depot, old Woodland Depot. And then I'll close this out with a picture it's intentionally out of order, just showing the sunset on David's Great Adventure. But I'm going to call attention to, over to the left, signs of the times, Globe license agencies, parcels to USSR. And I'm going to also close with a fun story about this section of Girard Avenue. several years ago, I had what I call the Christmas of the two Jennifers. I had taken a lot of pictures along here in my various visits when I was a teenager. And 2 or 3 Christmases ago, maybe in about late September, early October, I posted these things on Flickr. All these pictures are on my Flickr site, David Wilson, 1949. And this woman named Jennifer that said she and her new husband had just moved into a townhouse in the gentrifying area south of Girard Avenue, and she wanted to show her new husband what the neighborhood looked like way back when their grandparents were children. And so I sent her the picture and she said, thank you very much. And that was the end of that. But then several weeks later, I got another Flickr message from Jennifer in San Francisco, whose father was a Greek immigrant who settled up someplace near Germantown. And every day he would ride the 23 down to Girard Avenue and ride over to the fish market where he worked. And so she wanted a picture of this neighborhood for her father. And I sent her a kind of a cleaned up one. I got the dust out of the picture and cleaned up the resolution. And then in January or February, I got an email from her father showing the picture framed on his wall. So it's just a fun thing that all these pictures that I took when I was just going out because I love streetcars wound up touching people's lives. I should also point out why I'm doing this is that it's the PCC, but also the Reading going by in the background in the sunset. So what happened after David's great adventure? Well, he did the rest of the summer because I didn't turn 18 until the end of the summer. At the end of the summer, I strode into the Chicago and Northwestern Railway offices when I was still 17. Said, I'm looking for a job. And they gave me a job that started my 48-year career with 4 railroads, a freight forwarder, and the Chicago Transit Authority, and other odd jobs along the way. Take note of the Railway Express truck down there. So that would conclude David's graduation present great adventure. So thank you so much for your attention.